Hi everyone, my name's Avinash. I'm from a studio called Antariksh in India. The topic of our talk today is METAINDIANS, creating unique cultural characters in our video game. I'll be joined by my colleagues Varun, Praful, and Sarbeswar. Antariksh is an Indian cultural video game in which a mother-son duo undertake a cosmic pilgrimage to preserve Indian performative arts and culture. We've been working on this game since 2013, and in that time period, we produced a video game demo, a classical dance opera, a graphic novel, two music albums, and a whole lot of social media content. Currently, we're working on episode 1, in which we follow the lives of a family that answer a supernatural call to go on a pilgrimage of the Antariksh, or the universe. The project is incubated by our studio, Antariksh Studio, which is a transmedia collective focused on crafting Indian cultural entertainment for the world. We're supported by Epic Games India and the Epic Mega Grants program. The presentation plan for today takes us through 5 different experiments, of which the first 4 might go through a bit rapidly, and the fifth one is a bit of a deep dive so one can learn some tips and tricks on the cloth simulation pipeline in Unreal Engine 5. So without further ado, let's step into the first experiment, which is looking at personalizing the epic meta-human creator.
Hello all. Today we'll see how we use MetaHuman for generating Indian characters. We'll see 2 ways of using MetaHuman. First one, using photo reference, and the second one is using concept sculpt. First method. First of all, I have selected one front picture. Then I load the image in PureRef app. Inside PureRef app, I did below adjustment to use for our purpose. A. Overlay. Shortcut is Ctrl Y. B. Image opacity. The shortcut is select the image you want to change the opacity, and then click and hold Ctrl Shift Alt and drag the mouse button left and right to change the opacity. And the C, ignore mouse event. Keyboard shortcut is Ctrl T. Now we are almost ready to move to MetaHuman app. There is 3 options inside MetaHuman. A. Blend. B. Move. And C. Sculpt. Blend, where we can mix 6 different faces to make one unique face. B. Move, where we can adjust each part of the face broadly. And C. The Sculpt, where we can do little more finer detail. So as you see in the video, by using all above steps, we are able to create something like our reference image. Here is some animation example inside MetaHuman. So now let's discuss method 2. In this method, first we sculpt the likeness inside ZBrush. As you see, both our reference and render sculpt here. Also, a small time lapse and turntable of the process I'm adding here, so that you can see what we went through. And then we sketch out the outline of the sculpt. Now let's go to MetaHuman again. Here I'm trying to adjust the outline with MetaHuman. This step took a little time, as you see in the video. Also, you guys can see that I'm going to ZBrush and coming back to MetaHuman. So just checking all the big picture, is it matching or not. So yeah, this process is going on and on. Once we finish doing adjustment inside MetaHuman, then using Quick Shell Bridge, we downloaded both model and imported to Unreal Engine and do the rest of the things. So here is an example inside Unreal Engine. As you can see, small video. Now let's talk a little bit about MetaIndian. As you guys know that we Indian have very interesting faces. So how we achieve that, we can see here. We already discussed some step above. So we'll discuss what is the next step to achieve that. To do that, we need to export the face and body model from Unreal to ZBrush. Then we did our face adjustment inside ZBrush by following some photo reference image as you're seeing in the video. Once we're done with the adjustment inside ZBrush, then we imported back the model to Unreal Engine as a morph target. We also did texture adjustment for the Indian look. Texture adjustment we can do in so many different ways, like MetaHuman app, Photoshop, and Substance Painter. After finished texturing, we imported back the texture to Unreal Engine. So here are few examples of our morph target.
Here we are sharing our experience in making of digital version of traditional Indian costume. We tried lot of variation of cloth like sari, dhoti, shirt, and costume for classical Bharatanatyam dance. Dhoti and sari are simple cloth, rectangle in shape, but only experienced people can wear it properly. So making it in marvelous was also a little challenging. There is no stitch in this cloth to wear. We need to wrap around the body in a particular way. The marvelous we used to make base mesh of the primary folds and ZBrush to make additional details like secondary folds and numeric folds, etc. Since marvelous mesh is UV, we use the same base mesh for the game. The making of base map done in Marmoset and the substance painter used for texture. We also used substance designer to make unique procedural patterns for the borders of the dance costume and fabric. Most interesting part was to make the fan in costume of Bharatanatyam dance. We had to keep the fold remain same while it moving around. Marvelous and with effective features to handle it properly. We hope it came out well.
We also exploring for Indian hairstyle. For hair, we used Maya accent, but also planning to explore Houdini for our hair system in coming days. So here are few examples.
Thank you to the other speakers. My name is Varun and I'm going to take you through a basic workflow for skinning and simulating clothing on metahumans using the new Chaos Solver in Unreal 5. So to start, here we are inside of Unreal 5. This is the metahuman model we imported from MetaHuman Creator. And this is the costume asset we received from Praful one of the many talented artists on the team. So the goal now is to use this custom costume created outside of Unreal on a custom MetaHuman character created in MetaHuman Creator. The first step is to export the correct MetaHuman preview character out of Unreal so that we can load it into the DCC of our choice for skinning. I'm using Maya, but other packages will work too. Inside of Maya, load up the exported MetaHuman preview mesh as well as your cloth model. As you can see, the model is rigged and very nicely skinned. Now let's have a look at this lungi model. It is not ideal topology for simulation yet. It will also be difficult to paint skin and cloth weights on this because of the topology and relatively high vertex count, and also because of the double-sided mesh. So we will first create a low poly proxy version of this asset. We will not only use this asset to skin, but also later in Unreal to deal with the cloth sim. Once we have our proxy mesh, we can bind it to the MetaHuman skeleton and then copy weights from the body to the mesh. Copying the weights is optional, but it can often give us a good base to start from. Once the proxy mesh is properly skinned and weighted, we can also bind a high-res cloth to the MetaHuman skeleton. Then we can copy our nicely painted weights from the low-res proxy onto the high-res cloth. And if you want, tweak high-res mesh weights if necessary. Now that the proxy and high-res cloths are skinned to the MetaHuman skeleton, we can export and jump back into Unreal. But before we do that, make sure you assign separate materials to each of the meshes because we're going to export them together as one FBX. Select the two meshes, the joints, and export as FBX. When you import in Unreal, you can now assign this mesh to the MetaHuman skeleton. You will notice two meshes, but with two slots, so you can select either one. Now we create a new cloth object from the proxy mesh and click Remove from Object. This will create a new cloth asset in Unreal and enter cloth painting mode. This will also hide the proxy mesh. Here you can paint cloth like usual in Unreal. There are many tutorials about this, so I won't go into detail here. Notice how manageable the cloth is to paint due to the even and simple topology. You will also need to set up a custom physics asset for clothing, but again there is a lot of documentation on why this is necessary and how to do it, so I will skip over this for now, but here is our final physics asset. Now here's the cool part in my opinion. Once your proxy cloth is set up to your liking, you can tell Unreal to use the low-res proxy cloth to simulate, but then transfer that simulation over to the high-res cloth, which we will use to render in game. Now that this is done, you can see that the high-res cloth moves quite believably and doesn't intersect with itself. Unreal 5 also uses the new Chaos Cloth Solver, so you have a lot of new options here to play with. A lot of these settings will depend on the type of cloth you're working with and what you're actually trying to achieve, but I really like being able to increase the subdivisions or iterations on the solver, as it keeps the volume and the simulation of the cloth much more realistic and generally pleasing, while keeping everything really stable. The good thing is that everything updates in real time, so you can just experiment and iterate and hopefully end up with costumes that are visually rich but also stable to simulate, even with really intense forces. To take this further, we could use maybe tension maps or wrinkle maps to blend in and out normal maps based on the joint transforms or any other attributes, but that's outside the scope of this video. Thank you all. Hope this has been useful to someone out there, and thank you to the wonderful Antriksh team. It is truly an honor to work alongside such talented artists. Thank you.